business consultant.
I'm John Barton, small business owner. Remember the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady wins the race.
We started Turtlesmith to help people start small businesses, providing information and resources to small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Build a solid foundation and forge your dreams.
Small business podcast where we try to help people build their small business dreams, right? Our kind of motto is get rich slow, so none of these get rich quick schemes. Really about building foundation and trying to build a great business.
That is what we do.
My name is Scott Hess. I am a tax accountant and a consultant. And John, my partner here, is kind of a serial entrepreneur, you would say?
I would say, yeah, serial entrepreneur. I also have a core business where we make pool cue cases, and our cases are widely recognized as some of the best in our industry. So I approach everything from a high quality standpoint, and with Scott's help, we are applying great business principles to our core competency.
Well, trying to anyway. Yeah, it's a great way, very smart way to say it, I think.
Yeah.
Well, we are pretty new to the live space, but we've done a lot of podcasts. You can check out all of our old stuff where we talk about how to build a business plan. We talk about a lot of different business lessons and aspects. A lot of those lessons learned from terrible failures on our part. But today in our live, we decided to do our actual podcast that we usually just do as an audio only version live because there's breaking news. Trump has signed an executive order to declassify marijuana from a Schedule 1 drug to a Schedule 3. And that has quite a bit of big impact to small businesses. Apparently, a lot of my clients, we do a lot of taxes for cannabis companies.
Yeah, so from what I understand from the tax aspect of it, it makes it better because now they can actually take their regular business expenses off, right?
Well, so that's the big one, is the elimination of 280E, which is a punitive law, IRS code, that really hamstrings cannabis businesses, particularly dispensaries, but really everybody in the cannabis industry. There are hopefully going to be some ease of federal restrictions on banking and stuff like that, but I have not seen any evidence that that's going to occur. Because it is still technically illegal, it'll fall under some bank secrecy acts and some anti-money laundering acts, so it's still going to be a little bit tough. But the big one that we're going to talk about here in a little while too is now that it's a Schedule 3, it is recognized to have medical applications.
I mean, that is pretty cool that they've done that, which I consider that to have been a complete failure in our country because it's been recognized for thousands of years to have medical applications.
Well, that's interesting. We got a little history of the cannabis space.
Yeah, well, that's good. Go ahead with it then.
Well, so it's no, you're good. I didn't mean to interrupt. It's wild that cannabis was ever a Schedule 1 drug in the first place. In the 1800s and the early 1900s, cannabis extracts widely available at pharmacies. Hemp was a major agricultural product. Making rope and.
Hemp was the number one agricultural product in Oklahoma.
Yeah, and it also, it had rope, paper, textile, sails for the sailboats, and even some of our earliest American currency is on hemp, which I didn't know that. I learned that when I was researching.
Well, I don't know how true this is. I feel like I read it in one of the histories, talking about cannabis and leading up to this episode. But from what I understand, one of the reasons why there was a so-called war on cannabis started, I noticed that we have here some reference to Harry Anslinger, who was a real kind of teetotaler and somebody who was like, no drugs at all, and he needed a fight. So, but from what I understand, it was actually companies like DuPont that were making new fibers out of nylon and rayon. And they wanted to compete with hemp, so making cannabis illegal also made growing hemp illegal because of the ridiculously small amounts of THC in it.
Yep. Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head. It happened in the 1930s. Cannabis became kind of the subject of an aggressive political and media smear campaign. It was mostly read by Harry Anslinger. I think that's how you say his name. He was the first commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, and he was out to make a name for himself. So you're right. He was a teetotaler. He thought marijuana caused insanity, violence, and the moral collapse of society. And really, he targeted it as being something that was used primarily by minorities.
Oh yeah, it was super racist.
But all of those campaigns, which we talk about the campaign, it's the Reefer Madness campaign that we've seen kind of jokes about. But it was all backed by lobbyists for timber, cotton, petroleum, and the synthetic goods that you just talked about.
Because all of those industries were threatened by cannabis, by THC.
100%.
Not by THC, but by hemp. Hemp grows quickly. It's tough. It's one of the best natural fibers that you can get. And
Yep.
Yeah.
As part of that smear campaign, they had a complete lack of distinction between the psychoactive cannabis plant and the hemp plant.
right.
Because you're right, hemp as the fiber has like you'd have to smoke pounds and pounds and pounds of it to even feel a mild
You get
effect.
sick from it
Right.
if you even try.
And so that led in 1937 to the Marijuana Tax Act. And this actually didn't make it illegal, but it effectively criminalized it by imposing ludicrously heavy taxes and burdensome regulation to even have a hemp farm. And so it didn't really say, all right, cannabis is illegal. It just made it so unprofitable and difficult to grow that it destroyed the whole industry.
You would think that all the people on the right would be recognizing this as gross government overreach.
Right, right. And then the nail in the coffin for cannabis was the 1970 Controlled Substance Act. And that's where they classified a bunch of drugs as Schedule 1, 2, 3, or 4. Schedule 1 being the highest potential for abuse and zero medical benefit.
How do
So
they determine that a drug
LSD.
has zero medical benefit? I mean,
Well, that's true.
if it's bringing relief to someone in some form, that's some kind of medical benefit.
Right, right. And the classification of marijuana as a Schedule 1 drug, meaning that it had a high potential for abuse, which is just not true. And it had no medical benefit, which is also not true. It just flew in the face of all research and human logic. But the smear campaign of Reefer Madness was just so effective that everybody said, marijuana's bad, it doesn't offer anything good. And so that's where we've been for the past 100 years almost.
Well, the thing is not everybody said that, because obviously it's been in public use, you know.
Well, yeah.
I mean, my birth mom was a marijuana dealer. You know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember terms like Acapulco Gold.
Oh, yeah?
You know,
Okay.
From when, you know, and my first and last attempt at being a drug dealer was when I took one of her dime bags and went to the arcade, and an older kid said, "Let me see it," and we went outside, and as soon as we got outside, he said, he yelled, "Cops!" and he ran away with the bag, and I jumped in the bushes and stayed there for about 30 minutes until I realized I'd been ripped off. Then I had to go back home and face my mom, who was even better at accounting than you.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, okay, fair enough.
So she knew what happened. So that $10 bag got me out of the drug business almost faster than I got into it.
Like we always say, you learn more from your mistakes than from your successes.
Well, my ass learned a lot from that mistake.
Well, so when we talk about rescheduling cannabis, we're really talking about undoing almost a century of laws which have been shaped by fear, misinformation, and really economic self-interest rather than any scientific data. But this signing executive order is a great step in the right direction for the cannabis industry.
Right. I'm pretty sure that we're going to see DuPont and 3M cannabis on the market soon.
Yeah. Yeah, well, probably
Hemp oil by DuPont.
Well, I think the first move is Marlboro Greens, right? Just Marlboro coming out with their
something. It's just
weed
like,
packs.
Did you ever watch Weeds?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the greatest show because they predicted all of this.
Oh yeah. Well, the biggest effect that is going to be immediate in the cannabis industry is as long as everything goes through. Now, he signed the executive order. That doesn't mean it's actually declassified yet. He's just ordering the federal institutions that make these decisions to look at it and to declassify it.
Isn't that kind of the same though? Like, didn't Biden do that as well?
No,
Like,
so he talked about it, but I don't think he ever signed the
No,
executive
I think
order.
he did.
Did he?
So if
Well, he
from-
didn't push it through then.
So from what I understand, this is looking at it just a little while ago, right? And Calvin or somebody, feel free to fact check me on this. Biden actually ordered the DEA to look at declassifying it, to do it. And when Trump got in, he immediately put a stop to all of Biden's executive orders. And now he's basically restarting that executive order. If that's the way I understood it from reading it just a moment ago. But I understand that this is breaking news. There's going to be a lot of information flying around about this. So I'm not totally sure about the timeline.
It's my understanding that Biden said that he wanted to declassify it and was preparing to do so, but then it got stalled.
Okay.
It never did happen.
So we have an update from Calvin over
So
here.
I got it over here. It says in October 2022, President Biden directed the Secretary of Department of Health and Human Services and the U.S. Attorney General to review how marijuana is scheduled under the Controlled Substances Act, wanting to move it from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3. The DEA's rulemaking process was ongoing. This is basically the current status of that movement, but it's not finalized. The process includes a public comment period and potentially an administrative law hearing. So it never got to that point.
Gotcha. And we're on that way to that point.
Right, but
now.
I did read that there was a large public comment. So I think we were in the public comment phase.
Yep.
And 90% of the people commenting wanted it fully legal.
Yeah. So I think this is a good step in the direction. Once it gets declassified, I think making it federally legal and across all states is going to be much easier.
Yeah. But to be clear, this does not make it legal. Even in the states where it is legal, it's still federally illegal.
Right. So as a business, this declassification, the most important and most immediate effect that it's going to have is the 280E law. So 280E only applies to Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 drugs. It does not cover Schedule 3. And so 280E, what it is, it's a punitive IRS tax code. And it says, no deduction or credit shall be allowed for any amount paid or incurred in carrying on any trade or business if such trade or business consists of trafficking a controlled substance. And so really all marijuana sales, they consider trafficking. Cost of goods sold is not considered a deduction. It's actually considered an adjustment to income. So 280E companies are allowed to deduct cost of goods. Yeah, I'm sorry. Our laptop is failing. So, Dylan, I think the charger's right over here if we just want to plug it in real quick. So dispensaries get hit the worst during this. So they end up paying effective tax rates of between 70 and 80% of net income. So things like payroll, rent, utilities, advertising, admin costs, those things are not deductible. So only the purchasing of the actual good for sale is deductible.
See, we talked about that before when we were considering going in on a grow, you know, and we were talking and buying, you know, or getting in with some dispensaries as well along with that.
Right.
And the only way it made sense is if we have that vertical integration.
Yeah, you can't,
You know?
It's hard to just run a dispensary. You got to have a grow and a processor all kind of mixed together.
Because they couldn't deduct the fee. They could only deduct it if they. How was that exactly done?
Well, so it's a whole long story on the accounting, but if you're vertically integrated, grows and processors, they can lump a lot more into cost of goods sold, and so the grow and processor can sell the product for higher than market value to the dispensary. So the dispensary ends up making less money.
The dispensary that they own, because the
correct.
grow can deduct things that the dispensary can't.
Correct.
Basically.
Because those things are.
But if you're just a
grouped into
dispensary
cost of
buying from growers and buying from suppliers, then there's a lot of stuff you couldn't write off. So now, or not write off, but that you couldn't expense.
Correct.
And now you can.
Well, so 280E has this law that no deductions for ordinary business expenses can be taken. So once this is classified as a Schedule 3, there's no more mention of 280E. Cannabis businesses are just businesses.
Oh,
So they get all the same deductions and credits and rules as any other industry.
Okay.
280E is actually kind of funny. We've talked about this before, but I thought I would mention it again on how it came about. It's actually a retaliation to a guy named Jeffrey Edmondson.
Oh, I remember this story. Yeah, tell us a good story.
So Jeffrey Edmondson was convicted of drug trafficking in 1981. I found conflicting on what he was actually trafficking, but I believe it was like cocaine, heroin, methamphetamines, quaaludes, all kinds of stuff. He got in really big trouble. And so, as is usual with these cases, when a person is convicted of drug trafficking or drug dealing or anything like that, the IRS comes knocking for unpaid taxes.
We want the taxes on your criminal gains.
100%.
That's lovely.
And so Jeffrey Edmondson decided, well, my business is illegal, but it's still a business. So he filled out a tax return and submitted his returns where he wrote off packaging, transportation, storage, and I've heard other operational costs, and I've heard kind of rumors that he also tried to write off like payments to street guys and bribes and stuff like that. But I couldn't find any hard evidence, so that's just anecdotal.
He didn't want to go to prison for being a snitch on the under the table money he was paying to the dealers.
Right. So he did his drug business. He filed a tax return just as if it was any other business, and the IRS and Congress were furious at this man, and so they enacted and developed IRC, which is Internal Revenue Code 280E, specifically targeting drug traffickers. And so when the cannabis industry kind of boomed, the IRS and Congress they saw an opening and they took it. Is basically what happened. So Schedule 3 drugs fall out of this deal, and so now cannabis companies will no longer have to follow this punitive law that never should have applied to the cannabis industry in the first place.
Yeah, I was a friend of mine who's in the cannabis industry here told me a story about going out to Colorado and meeting with some cannabis guys out there, and one of those guys took him to a warehouse where he just had stacks and stacks of cash that was literally earmarked for taxes if they ever have to pay the tax.
Right.
And then the dude was paying for armed guards and a whole state of security and everything. Like he had his own little Fort Knox there.
Yeah. Well, so with the reduced tax burden and clearer federal recognition should come some investment. I think if a 280E wasn't around when we were talking about investing, maybe we would have thought about jumping in a little quicker.
Yeah, maybe. But now is basically opening it up for these guys like Philip Morris and.
It's a good question. It's a good question. So cannabis will be seen as less risky. So I think guys like Philip Morris, they probably are going to wait. Big Tobacco is probably going to wait for more clear federal guidelines, the regulations to reduce a little bit further. But, I've heard rumors that they already have grow operations like ready to turn online. They already have the packaging. They already have everything they need. So as soon as these kind of regulations fall enough in their favor, I think that's what we're going to see.
When I lived in China, I remember reading like a Chinese newspaper. They had they compared China at the time to a beautiful mansion that everyone was allowed to live in, but up in the main hall in the chandelier was a giant like python up there that could come down and strangle everyone at any time, just chose not to. That's kind of how I see this right now, is companies can invest. Dylan, just get up and walk. It's okay. We're live. Live things happen. All right. It's okay. This is YouTube, man. We're not so strict.
Right.
It's all good.
Yeah. There's just certain words we can't say.
But anyway, that's what it feels like to me, right? Is there's people that are investing. There's people that are willing to invest. There's probably big companies, big corporations licking their chops on this. Knowing that we have this pretty big industry now where everyone could get federally prosecuted if the federal government chose to do that.
Yeah, I mean, they probably could. That's a good analogy, the python in the chandelier just waiting.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm of the opinion that as the cannabis industry matures and expands, I think it's going to really turn very close to the wine industry. I think there's always going to be, Boone's Farm and cheap $5 bottles of wine that you can buy at Walmart. I think Philip Morris and Big Tobacco and some of these huge companies are going to pump out, basically crap weed, crap joints that you buy in bulk at, probably at Costco, but there's still going to be the liquor store that has a ton of variety of a ton of different products. And so I think there's going to be a lot of room in the market for smaller growers, niche products, interesting things.
That makes sense.
And because there's always going to be connoisseurs of weed. There's going to be weekend warriors who just want to try a little bit of something. But on the other hand, there's going to be the people who are mass consumers and just want to buy the cheapest product for the cheapest amount that they can use every day.
These states need to get their shit together, though. Oklahoma's kind of going a little crazy right now on the overregulation.
Oklahoma went for a cash grab early. They only made $2,500 licenses. They sold 20,000 licenses, grow licenses, 30,000 processors, just tons and tons. And now they're on a warpath. They want to try to get, I've heard the rumor is they want to get all processing, grow, and dispensary, the total of all three of those under 1,000. That's their goal.
Why though? It's just,
because they can't figure out the regulation. There are people right now who are waiting they've waited 2.5, 3 years now for the fire marshal to come out to give them their certificate of occupancy.
Yeah. Well, we had that with Tim, on there. That was a story that he told. He paid rent on a place for a year that was beautifully done, all well appointed.
Just can't get inspectors.
Can't get an inspector.
Yeah. So the other kind of interesting thing that rescheduling is going to do for business and spaces related in the cannabis industry is that federal regulations are now going to come down. So up to date, the states themselves have had almost all the power to regulate the cannabis industry within their state. And I don't think that's going to change. But I think two industries organizations that we're going to see come in are the FDA and the DEA. So the FDA regulates Schedule III drugs. And you may have to get approval from them to make certain claims. Like if you make a product that's supposed to combat seizures or have some medical use, the FDA has to approve that. You have to get FDA approval, just like any other medicine.
Yeah, that's like that strain they called Charlotte's Web, where that
great
little
example.
girl was having 100 seizures a day.
Yeah.
And last I checked, they had cut that down to almost none.
Right.
Right.
So we're going to have to see as this progresses, but the FDA is probably going to have a lot more say in what you can buy, what has medical benefit, what doesn't have medical benefit, what's just a fun drug, and what can actually do
What do you think is
stuff.
going to actually be done though on this? Is this going to be a thing where they just all drag their feet and okay, it's great. They at some point say, okay, this is now Schedule III, like an official announcement, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And then what? Is it another 10 years or so of research on cannabis, of official research?
Yes.
Or are they going to accept any of the 37,000 papers that have been written on cannabis since 2015?
No, I think a lot of those are going to be probably used as precursors or information to promote other studies. But no, I think it's going to be a feat.
Are we going to start to see university studies on cannabis?
I think we will. Yeah, I think we will start seeing that.
That's gonna make a lot of college students happy.
Yeah.
The ones that make a little extra money.
Right. Yeah, doing the test guinea pig. So the DEA can also jump in to regulate. They regulate manufacturing and distribution of Schedule III drugs. So they'll probably are going to have a say in how these things are going to work. So we'll have to see what these federal regulations do. One thing that this will not affect right away, I think, is banking. And that's the worst problem right now for most cannabis people besides 280E is it's hard to have a bank account. There's a lot of anti-money laundering and bank secrecy acts and all these things that prevent you from just having a normal bank relationship with your cannabis company. And so without additional and comprehensive federal and state law changes, banking is going to remain a big issue. There's only 2 or 3 here in Oklahoma that allow it. And one of the biggest ones has just stopped. They're like, we have too many. We're not taking any more cannabis companies.
Because they don't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah, so there's a couple that are taking them right now. And so it's difficult. There's a lot of regulations on the bank side and on the
So here's a question for you then. Can't they do like this? So you have a cannabis company, right? You're bringing in money. Can't you just create another company that's some kind of consulting business or something and pay them, and then they have the banking relationship?
Yeah, that's a great way to get in trouble for money laundering.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Is it,
when you
would
start,
that, I mean,
when you start
okay.
shit stacking the shell companies and paying
Well, that
consulting fees.
that was my question. Is like, would that be considered money laundering?
Well, so it's not money laundering if you do it correctly, but that's how people start to get in trouble when they have these companies that they're running stuff through. That's why. That's
yeah,
how
I mean,
they
I
started
get
to
it.
knock
I get
on
it.
the
If
door.
you like, if you're selling coke or meth or whatever on illegal stuff on the street, we've all seen Breaking Bad and all that. With what are they going to do with all the cash?
Right.
That's clear. I guess less clear is when the state says that you're legally allowed to have this business, but the bank won't bank with you because it's federally illegal.
The bank won't bank with you. The bank won't give you loans. Like even if you're a cannabis business owner and you want to get a loan on your house, they won't even give it to you because the cannabis.
Yeah, I mean, I can
your money
see
comes from cannabis.
I can see how the federal government would call that money laundering, even though you're literally trying to do legitimate business.
Well, so it's not money laundering, but you can start getting investigated and in trouble for it. Like they'll come check your books and they'll start making sure you're doing everything correctly, and like you can explain it. Of like, hey, I'm just trying to run this bank, but yeah, it can cause you some problems. So.
That's crazy.
And then I'm curious, Calvin had some opinions on this, but I'm curious. I thought the black market was kind of effectively gone, but apparently it's booming. Yeah. There's people who just are too lazy or don't want to get their medical card, and so the black market's booming. I wonder what this declassification is going to do, if it'll ramp it up more.
Some people don't want to be in a database.
Right, yeah.
There's still the question of whether, for example, you're not supposed to own a gun if you're using cannabis.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah, because it's a Schedule I drug, number one. So
yeah, that makes
when
sense.
you go to register for ownership of a gun or to buy a gun, you have to fill out a form that says I'm not using or any illegal drugs.
Yeah.
And so
sometimes, I bought a gun at the fairgrounds, and I just had to give my initials. That's all I had. They just had to fill out a little paper.
That's the gun show loophole, I think.
Put my initials in there. So.
But yeah, I mean, but if you go to like a place that sells guns, like a pawn shop or a gun shop or something, you're supposed to fill out a form.
Right.
That's the whole thing that got Hunter Biden in trouble.
Right.
Right. Which, by the way, I think the whole thing is you fill out on the form, you say I'm not using any illegal drugs. Isn't it? Can't you just say at that moment?
Well,
are we going to get into the physics of time?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I mean, I just think that's a valid argument.
No, it is. It is.
It's like, have you ever used any illegal drugs any time in your life? That's a more
is that the question. Yeah. But that's not the question.
If that were the question,
I think it's are you using?
Yeah. So. And if it's an are you using thing, well, not right at this moment.
Yeah.
That's like, I can quit smoking anytime I want. I just did it 5 minutes ago, and now I've restarted.
There you go. There you go. Well, I think the most exciting benefit of this reclassification is going to be the opportunities for research and medical use. So now that it is listed as a Schedule III drugs are considered drugs that have a medical purpose. And so that's going to make it a lot easier for people to get it for research purposes.
So here's another question that comes to mind with that. Cannabis has been legal or semi-legal in some European countries for a long time. Mm-hmm. Don't they have any research on this?
They do, but the FDA doesn't always care what Europe does.
My dad had an organization called Fight for Life. We've talked about it a few times, or I have on this back in the 90s. And Fight for Life was one of many organizations, several organizations that went out of the country to get drugs for AIDS patients that were not FDA approved.
Oh, like the Dallas Buyers Club.
It was exactly like Dallas Buyers Clubs, except his was based in Florida.
Okay, the Florida Buyers Club.
Right. It was called Fight for Life, and it was a Buyers Club. Yeah. And he would travel to Europe, and he would have prescriptions from doctors for these drugs that weren't available in the U.S., and then he would aggregate them, get them, and he would literally bring them back. And before they made it legal to do that for patients to be able to do that, he was literally smuggling these drugs.
Right.
And then after they made it legal to use them or bring them in, he would open up the suitcase and have a whole suitcase full of all these drugs that weren't FDA approved, but legal to bring in for patients to try.
Yeah, see, I feel like if you have a terminal illness like heroin or sorry, not like cancer or AIDS in the 80s or something that like is gonna kill you, you should just be able to take whatever you
I
want.
think
You should get a
didn't
card that says I can take heroin, I can take any drug that I choose.
yeah. Yeah, I think that well, didn't speaking on this, didn't Trump just do like an executive order on that as well, like the right to try
Yeah, yeah.
for people who want to do experimental,
Hmm.
things that but yeah, I agree with you. If you're terminally ill, yeah. What's the problem as long as you're not hurting anybody else?
Right. 100%.
Take anything you want.
Yeah. Well, so moving cannabis, it's really going to signal a federal acknowledgement that cannabis does have accepted medical uses, which should increase federal funding into research and make kind of lower these barriers that a lot of researchers were
Will that mean you
facing when it
can
was Schedule 1.
yeah, would that also mean you can legally move it interstate?
So that's a good question. It depends on the state, and I'm not 100% sure on how interstate commerce is going to go because in Oklahoma you're licensed in Oklahoma, but if you wanted to do business in Missouri, you have to be licensed in Missouri. So that's something we're going to see. What's up, Calvin?
3 states in the United States, Oregon, California, and Washington, already have interstate trade agreements built in, voted in by the voters of those states,
Okay.
which allows the governors of those states to enter into an interstate trade agreement for cannabis, given that it doesn't violate any current federal laws.
Okay, so that's kind of what I thought is that the states themselves are going to have to decide whether interstate commerce between themselves is allowed.
Yeah, I just, I wonder if that sets up some kind of argument with the federal government about our states. I didn't think states were allowed to make those sort of compacts between themselves.
They are
commerce.
in certain situations as long as it doesn't override the federal law, which right now there's no federal regulation on that kind of interstate stuff for cannabis. So.
Huh.
But again, I think we're going to see a lot of this play out over the next 3 or 4 years as it gets declassified and as the business increases. We're going to start seeing a lot more rules and regulations and deals and trade agreements come through.
So at this moment, the business side of it is kind of still up in the air as to how it's really going to affect the business, but hopefully it makes it better for banking.
So the 100% thing that's going to happen for business is that 280E is no longer a thing. And that is incredible news for everybody in the cannabis business. It's just going to be a regular business. You're going to pay your proper effective tax rates. You're not going to be hamstrung by this punitive law that shouldn't apply. The next big thing is that now that it's Schedule 3, it's the federal government has acknowledged that it has medical use. And so now we're going to see a lot more research that's going to be more highly regarded, I guess we could say, by the FDA and other kind of regulatory administrations. They're going to have to take these research papers into account when they're making decisions on their regulations.
So did Biden commute a lot of people's sentences that were convicted of like nonviolent marijuana offenses?
I think there was a lot of that. I'm not sure if Trump has done any, but that's a good thing. I mean, honestly, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about it. There are still a ton of people in jail for cannabis related.
Yeah, they're
crimes.
in jail, and then there's a lot of people who were convicted and served their time or on probation or whatever
Yeah,
that are saddled with a felony conviction, and they can't get certain jobs. They're
which is
it's like a lifelong punishment.
Which is a whole conversation in itself. That I mean, I think once you serve your time, if you do the right things, that it should all get removed. You shouldn't have to be a felon. You shouldn't have to be punished for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I agree. You serve your time, and that's it. And I would say for certain things, so
Well, for non-violent crimes.
non-violent things. But if you're like an embezzler, right?
Well, see,
then
that's a good question. Where do we draw the line?
A company might want to know that's something that you did, and
it's true. I think you got to draw the line in a bunch of different places. So that's what makes it hard, and why these blanket solutions are so much easier. You know? But I think for sure, even though it'll still be federally illegal. We should see a big reduction in mandatory minimums and the severity of sentencing for criminal offenses that would still be related to cannabis. State laws are still going to govern it. So depending on what state you get in trouble in is is where those kind of minimums and the severity is going to come through. So it doesn't, rescheduling doesn't automatically do anything for the punitive measures that the states can
I
take.
think every state should have like common sense committees,
Yeah, there you go.
let's see how these laws interact and what makes sense and what doesn't, because there's so much interplay there that's harmful to people. One guy I had working for me had a drug charge like 20 years prior, and it wasn't even his drugs. The police came in the house for someone else's drugs, and then they just charged everybody in the house with possession.
Yep.
And now, 20 years later, after the guy has been working in the bar industry for 13 years, and every year you have to get a new liquor license.
Oh yeah, they finally brought it up.
They brought it up and said, we're not going to give you a liquor license. And if you read the letter of the law, he should have gotten his liquor license, but now he can't work because they've just arbitrarily said no.
Yeah.
And if he wants to get back in, he's got to hire a lawyer and try to get the record expunged and all this bullshit.
Yeah.
So it's not only that they have these draconian laws that affect people and businesses, by the way, because this was a good employee and now he can't work in that space. So 13 years of experience is gone. And instead of going in, and not only do they have these harsh ass laws, then they don't even apply them correctly.
Yeah.
Well,
they just apply them arbitrarily. Too.
Arbitrarily,
there's so much, leeway that you can give.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, so here's my question for you. I think, if it becomes federally legal, we should probably just hand wave pardon most nonviolent criminals that were incarcerated for cannabis use or cannabis trafficking or
Should
whatever.
have been done. Yeah.
But then the thing is the argument on the other side, I do see it, is that, they broke the law when it was a law. Doesn't matter that it's not a law anymore. When they broke it, it was a law.
This is where we have to have common sense, empathy.
Yeah, I'm with you on the common sense
We
committee.
have to do these things that we have to say to ourselves, okay, yes, it was a law. Yes, they broke the law. They have been convicted. They have gone through all the trauma and the stigmatization that comes with that. How about we just let them out now and let them live a normal life? Let them try to rebuild their life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, the fact is that all prosecutors have discretion as to what to charge and what not to charge. And we know fully well that people get away with a lot of stuff, and
Sometimes.
other people get prosecuted for very minor stuff, and the impact on people's lives can be as little as a speed bump, or it can be literally going from having a decent job to being homeless within a few months.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it doesn't even have to do with the severity of the crime. It has to do with just the fact that they're being so inconvenienced by being incarcerated over a minor crime.
Yeah.
That they lose everything. They lose what little they had.
Yeah, lose their job, their house, all their stuff.
Yeah, and it's just crazy.
It's hard to go to prison for just while you're waiting your trial. Or to jail, rather.
Society needs to, our society needs to just. Jim Jeffrey said it best. I think he said, 250 years since you wrote the Constitution. Don't you guys ever update your material?
Fair enough. Well, that's kind of it for this episode. Our big talking points, or our big takeaways, is that this reclassification, 280E gone. So cannabis is going to be just regular industry when it comes to taxes. That is huge for all of my clients are very excited about it. And I know a lot of people in the industry are very excited about it. They've been fighting these stupid laws for the last 10 years, and now it's just going to be gone, which will be great. We should see some more bigger investments probably from some of these bigger companies, Big Tobacco, Philip Morris. We'll see what they do. They may still wait for some further regulations to make it easier on them, or they may try to jump in now. But the other big one is research. I think we're going to see a lot more universities and medical companies doing actual research into cannabis.
All right. Well, I'm going to call on President Trump to pardon every person in the United States that was federally charged with any cannabis issues or any cannabis crimes that were nonviolent, not make sure they're nonviolent. You know, we don't want any murderers getting out.
No, I'm with you.
And stimulate the economy. You know, most of those guys are probably entrepreneurs in their own right.
Oh yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
stimulate the economy there. I don't know if anybody's been federally prosecuted for using weed. You know,
I don't know. I think
maybe
mostly,
just possession,
mostly
probably.
trafficking and dealing.
Possession that was upgraded to trafficking or whatever. But hey, get the stoners on your side, get the weed entrepreneurs on your side. Let's get these people out of jail and get them back into society. So good first step, I guess, with the rescheduling to Schedule 3.
Yeah.
And let's hope that it has positive benefits for business in our country.
I think it definitely will. It definitely will. Well, do we have any questions? Yeah.
Now that 280E will not apply to cannabis businesses, would this be a good time for current operations in legal states to look for plans for expansion?
Yes. Yep. Now would be the time. If you're already up and running, now would be the time to expand. It depends on what state you're going to be looking in. I do not suggest coming to Oklahoma. It is a dumpster fire right now. A lot of my clients here have moved to Missouri. A couple have done really well in New Jersey. New York, besides the licensing requirements, the fees are very high. But yes, if you have a good operation, because 280E is basically going to free up, what would be a very large tax bill, now would be a good time to expand. And for manufacturing plants, I have no idea how this applies. So do your own research, and maybe I need to do some research. But the big beautiful bill that Trump signed, he's trying to bring back manufacturing into the U.S. And so there's a lot of advantages to build manufacturing companies and manufacturing plants in the States right now. And so I'm wondering if that applies to cannabis processing. If you're manufacturing a drug or a good, I bet you get those same tax write-offs. So yeah, 2026 is going to be a good year to invest in cannabis, I think.
Okay, so just real quick on the 280E thing again, right? So businesses up until now were not able to write off or not able to expense their cost of goods?
So 280E states that no deductions or credits may be taken by any business. Cost of goods sold is not considered a deduction. It's considered an adjustment to income. So what that means is that a dispensary basically takes their top line revenue, total sales, they subtract their cost of goods for what they spent on just the cannabis product they sold, nothing else.
So none of their posters, none of their cabinetry, anything like that.
None of that. And that's their taxable income every year.
Right. So whatever they've got to spend other than buying the cannabis
is not deductible.
Is not deductible in any way.
Correct.
So now, can that retroactively become deductible for them in years past?
That's a great question, and I think the answer is no.
Okay.
I looked into it before we did this, right as he signed it. I do not believe that there's going to be any retroactive, unless Trump or somebody else does a big change. I don't think it's going to apply for tax year 2025. I think it will only apply once it is actually rescheduled, which based on the timelines I've been reading should happen in the next 3 months or so. So 2026 will be the first year that those taxes apply.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that makes sense. So probably no relief for 2025 or 2026 maybe?
2026 we should see the relief.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think 2025. Now that's if it actually goes through. So the executive order does not mean it's guaranteed, but it should be.
Okay.
Like it's most likely going to happen, but we'll just have to see. But to get back to his question, yes, expansion, investing in cannabis with a smart business plan and in a market that has the demand, it's a good time to invest. Oklahoma does not have the demand, and we have way too much supply. So not a good market right now to be expanding into. But other states that are short on supply.
We were excited until we ran the numbers, and we just, no matter which way we did it, we couldn't make them work.
I did about 12 different business plans trying to make stuff work, and we went through the feasibility study is what we were going through, and that's the most important part of phase 1 of your business plan, and we just couldn't make it past it. We couldn't make the numbers work here. Any other questions? No? All right. Well, let's jump into a recap of last week's episode. So last week we talked about a kind of an exciting deal, the Netflix offering to buy Warner Brothers, Paramount throwing in a competing bid. Netflix is really trying to become the dominant player in streaming. And if they were to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery, I think they would be 2.5 times size. The second leading, which is would be either Amazon or Disney. I think Disney's second. So they would be 2.5 times bigger than Disney.
Isn't it kind of crazy that basically the service that basically killed Blockbuster, you know, the whole DVDs by mail thing, is now buying legacy studios?
So do you know why Netflix was thought of first? Is because the founder of Netflix got a $40 late charge at Blockbuster.
Oh,
And he was pissed about it.
there you go.
And that was the genesis of Netflix. And I
How
say
many-
it's Blockbuster. It may not have been, but it was a video rental store. He got a $40 late charge, and he was so mad about his $40 late charge that he had an idea of a DVD subscription model. And that was their whole gig at the beginning, if you remember, like early 2005, 6. No late fees ever. Keep them as long as you want.
Right. Yeah.
That was the whole thing. And so that's really where Netflix came. And then there's a bunch of funny stories about Blockbuster. I mean, they had the opportunity to buy Netflix. For
That's right.
I think it was like $1 million.
Yeah, it
and
was
then they
like
got
super cheap.
Then they had another offer for like $100 million, and they just kept laughing at them. And now Netflix is the number one streaming service in the world, and it's about to be one of the like media empire. At this point, they built a huge studio on the East Coast, and if they buy Warner Brothers Discovery, they're going to own a huge studio on the West Coast.
Watch them come full circle and start reopening Blockbusters. They probably bought Blockbusters copyright or bought their IP and.
I mean, it's not something that I would do like every week, but like it was fun, especially like a date night.
Yeah.
You go out and grab some takeout. You go to Blockbuster and pick out a video. Go back to. It was a fun way to waste a half hour or 45 minutes walking through there and looking at all the movies. And
Yeah,
you grabbed a new release, but then you also like showed off a little to pretend your favorite film was Apocalypse Now or something.
Yeah, that's true. That was an experience, right?
Right, it was
absolutely.
fun. It was fun. Well, so Netflix has made this offer, $72 billion in equity, and they're going to absorb $10 billion in debt from Warner Brothers, and then they're spinning off a separate company called Discovery Global, which is going to have the cable and news networks. Netflix doesn't want that, so that's going to be its own thing. But then Paramount came in hard with a higher offer. They're trying to do a hostile takeover, basically. They've acquired a portion of the stock, and then they made a tender offer to all the shareholders. Those shareholders have until January 8th, and it's my understanding that the Netflix board, the Warner Brothers board is trying to tell its shareholders, do not sell. We're trying to do this deal with Netflix. So we do have some updates on that. So Warner Brothers Discovery unanimously recommended that their stockholders reject the $30 per share hostile tender offer from Paramount. The board labeled Paramount bid as illusory and inferior due to significant financing risk and regulatory uncertainties. The Paramount deal is being backed by Gulf sovereign funds. So the UAE, UAE is Dubai, but UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar are backing this, and there is a lot of national security concern regarding that. We go into great detail on that on the episode. Check that out. It's kind of an interesting conversation, but having the Middle East affect our news is a real security concern. And so they're thinking, the Warner Brothers Discovery board is saying that this offer, it's not great, the financing isn't there, and they don't even think that it will pass through on the national security concerns, because the federal government has to approve these kind of transactions. So then the board officially reaffirmed its support for the $82.7 billion Netflix merger agreement. They maintain that Netflix offers a more certain and superior path forward, even though the $27.75 per share offer is a little bit lower than Paramount's cash offer. The deal is targeted acquisition of the Warner Brothers segment, which includes HBO Max, and the film and TV studios. You know, they're going to get all kinds of stuff: Harry Potter, Game of Thrones. It's going to be a big move for them. So it excludes the cable networks, CNN, TNT, Sports, and Discovery, which are going to be in that Discovery Global, a new independent company. So in letters sent to stockholders today, Netflix co-CEOs Ted Sarandos and Greg Peters emphasized that they intend to maintain Warner Brothers' traditional theatrical release windows. So this is a strategic move to ease concerns from creators and regulators who feared Netflix would move all major Warner Brothers films to streaming immediately, which would kind of kill what's left of movie theaters. When's the last time you went to a movie theater?
Actually, we went a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
We saw that boring movie Wicked 2.
Oh, was it boring?
Wicked for Good, yeah.
Okay. Did your girls like it?
They didn't go.
Oh.
Yeah, they were all excited for the first one, but apparently the second one got a bunch of thumbs down. So they were like, no.
Didn't want to go.
Mm-mm.
Well, I didn't mind the first one. I'm sure I'm going to have to sit through the second one at some
I
point.
kind of like the first one, but the second one just...
You know, we always go to that Flicks Brew House, which I think is fun, where you have the reclining seats and they bring you a beer.
And food.
Yeah, and food. So Netflix confirmed is already submitted its HSR Hart-Scott-Rodino antitrust filing. So that's one of the big concerns about this merger is that Netflix would become too big, creating a monopoly in the media space. So it's engaging with the DOJ and the EU Commission. The company expects the transaction to close within 12 to 18 months, provided it clears intense scrutiny over horizontal concentration in the streaming market. So basically what that means is Netflix is going to be the biggest player, and antitrust laws stop monopolies from occurring. And so there is a concern that if Netflix take over Warner Brothers, that there's going to be a monopoly. They're going to be the biggest thing.
And whenever there's a monopoly, it all gets more expensive.
It gets more expensive. Competition, you know, always lowers prices. It's going to be a strange deal.
Just like in the game.
Yeah, there you go. Just like in the game.
It was funny how monopoly was created to highlight, you know, it was basically a protest against capitalism. Mm-hmm. And people took it as a educational guide anyway.
Yeah, yes, they did. Well, check out our podcast that came out yesterday. We talk way more about all of these deal points and what will happen regarding the antitrust and the national security concerns. But my opinion of this is I really hope neither one of these deals go through. I think we're going to have some short-term chaos because Warner Brothers' debt is so high. We're going to see probably the final death nail in cable TV. A lot of these streaming services will buy up into, you know, little cable news. But I think if we have more studios that are smaller, we'll get better content. Netflix becoming this giant is going to force Amazon and Disney to buy up a bunch of studios. We're basically going to have three or four big players, and they're just going to come out with the same dribble every year.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm a little bit more concerned about, you know, the impact on the news. You know, people are already distrustful of news, and I think we need to have some kind of doctrine on the news that separates them from the editorial content from the actual news reporting.
Yeah.
And I don't think there should be any restriction whatsoever on reporting on facts.
Okay.
You know.
Well, but then, you know, what happens if people are reporting what they believe are facts and then they end up being wrong? Do they get punished?
They should.
Tough.
No, they shouldn't get punished. What they should do is they should have to. It should be the law that they have to go in and print or broadcast the retraction and say, you know, these were the facts. And in every time they do it, they should say, these are the facts that we know at this time. Mm-hmm. And then if they repeatedly violate that, you know, then they just lose their license to be a news reporter. You know, seriously. And they can't and they can't masquerade as, they can't use the word news and then just be an opinion broadcast.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of the problem is we have to have a way to have trust that the news being reported to us is actually what's factual. That we can at least have that basis to agree on, and then we can talk about what to do about those things.
Yeah.
But the way it is now is this is mostly opinion wrapped around a few facts, and we can't even agree on what those facts are.
Yeah.
So
It's hard to trust the news.
So now you're talking about foreign governments coming in, literal foreign governments coming in and investing in our entertainment and news industry. So how's that supposed to work?
I do not know. Yeah. There's definitely going to have to be some kind of regulations or, oversight into what is.
I do have a question, though, that comes to mind that is a complete non sequitur here, but it does sort of have an entertainment aspect. So the other day I was watching a play, The Christmas Carol, and all the American performers were doing British accents.
Yeah.
Do they ever have plays in England where the performers are using American accents?
I'm sure.
Like whole plays?
I'm sure.
Like A Streetcar Named Desire or something?
I'm sure. I'm sure they do.
I need to find the answer to that.
But, just go to London. They have lots of plays. You can go see one.
Let's go.
I'm down. Off we go. We'll report back. Well, that's kind of our recap. Definitely check it out. It's got a lot more kind of detail on the deals. I'm excited to kind of keep updating this to see what happens over.
You are really interested in this.
I am. These.
I feel like
business
you're way
things.
more interested in this than I was in the Diddy oil thing.
Okay. Yeah, we had to bring it back full circle.
Well, did you know that, speaking of Netflix, there's a documentary
I haven't seen it yet.
on there?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
You want a spoiler?
Okay.
Somewhere in one of those, there's 4 episodes. Somewhere in one of those, there's an accusation of the actual baby oil being laced with drugs.
Okay.
Like ketamine or ecstasy or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even sure how that actually works, but
I don't know either. I guess maybe it absorbs.
like, could
into
you
your
imagine
skin.
that, like rubbing that all over your skin, and like as much as we made fun of the whole baby oil thing, when you watch it, if you decide to watch it, you're gonna find out that my interest in it was way lower than Diddy's interest in having
No,
oil
I think
around.
your interest in it mostly was just to mess with me.
Oh,
So-
yeah, well, it became that way, of course, but sometimes it's just a good way to lubricate the conversation.
Nailed it with the pun. All right. Do we have any more questions? Nope. All right. Well, we are Turtlesmith. We want to help you guys start businesses. We want to answer your questions. We are live every week on Thursdays, usually at 4:30, but we came on a little early this week for this kind of breaking news about the cannabis. But check us out at turtlesmith.com. Check out our Patreon, where we're gonna have some courses going up. Again, courses it's like $5 a month. Jump on, grab what you want, get out. Like, you don't have to. We're not trying to make a bunch of money. We just want to reinvest that into getting smarter people than us to do better courses in the future. We've got our episodes going up on there as well, all filmed. We have our audio podcast. And please hit us up with any questions. Find us at Turtlesmith OK on all of our socials. Ask us a bunch of questions. We're happy to help answer business questions. That's what we want to do.
Absolutely.
We want to try to help
Check
people
out-
start companies.
yeah.
Audio podcast links are in the description of this video.
Great. Yeah, audio podcast in the link in the description. And then one more fun thing to announce is we are doing a business plan competition. So we are going to put up, John and I, $1,000 for the best business plan that you send to us. There's rules and stuff on the website. Submit us a business plan. We're going to be opening those up now. I think you can submit all the way up to like March 1st. And then we're going to pick some winners, have people present live their kind of pitch deck, and then we're going to pick a winner.
And pro tip, we have a lot of good content on how to create a business plan. So
The guide
do
is
check
up.
that out.
The guide is up, and we did a whole season of podcasts just on every phase of doing a business plan. So,
But it will not necessarily disqualify you if you do not follow our
No.
format for a business plan. So
Nope.
we want to be clear about that, right?
Yep.
We want to hear your ideas.
yes, yeah, you don't have to follow our deal. There's some universal things that need to be included in all business plans, but it does not necessarily have to be our exact version. So,
Yeah. So we look forward to seeing them.
yeah. Well, anyway, thanks so much for joining us. If you did, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. See y'all next week.
I'm Scott Hess, tax and business consultant.
I'm John Barton, small business owner. Remember the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady wins the race.
We started Turtlesmith to help people start small businesses, providing information and resources to small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Build a solid foundation and forge your dreams.